Having said that, let us now consider thematic characters. Revelation is a drama. It's written in very vivid, terrifying imagery, apocalyptic imagery, as we've been mentioning from time to time in the course of this conference. Before we can trace the movement of the book of Revelation, I want us to consider two major characters that are of interest not only to the modern exegete and prophecy enthusiasts, but also are very prominent in the book of Revelation. Now, of course, we won't consider Christ, he's the most prominent, but two characters that hold a lot of the emphasis of the story. They are the beast and the harlot. Now let's consider the beast first. Remember, the whole idea of audience relevance tells us that these people were living in the time of Rome. The whole concept of it being near and shortly to come to pass tells us it must be something in their time frame. And let us notice in chapter 13, verse 1, John says, I saw a beast rising up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and on his horns 10 crowns, and on his heads a blasphemous name. Now here we're going to look at this beast generically and specifically. In other words, we're going to look at this beast in terms of its corporate reality and in terms of a particular individual. For instance, if I say to you, if I say the phrase, the body of Christ, what do you think of? Well, those of you on my right hand would say, well, that's the Church of Jesus Christ. Those of you on my left might say, no, that's Jesus' body that He came to the earth in. You see, there can be a specific referent and a generic referent. Just like the body of Christ can mean either Christ specifically as a historical individual, or it can mean the generic body of Christ, those who are blood-bought trophies of His conquering power. Well, so I want us to consider this beast both generically and individually. Generically, the beast represents Rome. Remember, the beast has 7 heads, which are 7 mountains, the angel tells John. The 7 hills are well known as descriptive of the city of Rome, seated on 7 hills. And also, we see this beast arising up out of the sea. And since I've already indicated, a lot of the, well, actually, the major flow of the book of Revelation deals with Israel's predicament. When you visualize a map of Israel, you see Israel right on the corner, right on the western edge of the Mediterranean Sea. And if you plot a path across the sea, you get to Rome. So in the imagery, the beast comes up out of the sea. Rome and its soldiers will come that way up from across the sea from Rome. The crowns on his head represent political power. What nation in the world, actually it wasn't a nation, it was an empire, what political entity in the world of that day had multiplied power at its command? Obviously the Roman Empire. In fact, in verse 5 and in various places there, it says that it makes war. This beast makes war against the saints. Well, that involves a national entity to actually make war. And I think that that refers to the persecution of Christians. But for right now, just notice scholars recognize, across the board, there are scholars who recognize that the beast represents Rome. But the scholars also tell us that the image of the beast shifts between the generic empire and the specific emperor, who is the representative of Rome. Notice the beast has 7 heads, and those 7 heads are 7 kings, and he says one of those is, and I showed earlier just briefly that the one that is the 6th emperor of Rome, who is Nero. And then you're all familiar with Revelation 13:18, which says the number of the beast is the number of a man. Notice that 7-headed beast now becomes specifically a man. And then in chapter 17:11, it talks about another who is one of the 7, a beast who is one of the 7. So you see, the beast has the 7 heads, yet sometimes he is the one head. Okay? Well, who is this one head? The one head is Nero, the 6th emperor. And in many remarkable and relevant ways, Nero fits the facts. And let me just survey a few samples for you. In chapter 13, verse 18, which I've already mentioned, it says the number of the beast is the number of a man, and his number is 666. By the way, it is not 6 and 6 and 6. In the Greek, it says 660 and 6. So sometimes people make strange associations with the series of sixes. It is a number, an arithmetical value of 660 and 6. Well, the Hebrews, remember John was a Hebrew, and the book of Revelation is written in very Hebraic imagery, even in awkward Greek that has a very Hebraic tone. Hebrew does not have a separate numbering system. They use their alphabet. Of course, Rome did that too with the Roman numerals, but they did it in a different way. The way the Hebrews fashion things is they use the first 10 letters of the alphabet, Aleph, Beth, Gimel, Daleth, etc., to represent 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc., and then the next 10 to represent 10, 20, 30, etc., and then it goes to 100, etc. Well, very interestingly, when you add up a first century Hebrew spelling of the characters that make up the name Nero Caesar, you find that it adds up to 666. So that fits. In chapter 13, verse 5, it says, he was given a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies, and he was given authority to continue for 42 months. And then in verse 7, he adds to that, he says, it was granted to him to make war with the saints and to overcome them. You're probably aware that Nero was the first imperial persecutor of the Christian church. In fact, the imperial persecution broke out in November of AD 64 and did not cease in finality, although it waned a lot, it did not cease in finality until June of AD 68, which is a period of right at 42 months, from November 64 to June of 68. In 1310, we read of the sword death of the beast. He who leads into captivity shall go into captivity. He who kills with the sword must be killed with the sword. Nero died at his own hand by thrusting a sword in his throat. He committed suicide with a sword that had been used by his imperial office to put to death many people. Nero, remember this book opens with John saying, I, John, was on the Isle of Patmos. He's not there as a tourist attraction. There's no Disney World there. He is there in a penal colony. He has been captured by the beast and sent to this island. And therefore, we find that this fits as well.